Topic today is the health and impact of the arts in Rochester. And following today's talk, my colleague Rebecca Foos will be giving a short overview and tour of some of the many arts resources and arts-related services that the Rochester Public Library provides, from arts classes and exhibitions to unique resources available for loan, such as ukuleles, artwork, and sewing machines. Please see Rebecca at the end of the program to participate. Our guest speaker today is Dr. Dawn Lipson, and there are a few people in our community who are as qualified to speak about the arts as Dawn. For many years, she has donated her time, her expertise, and her financial support to arts organizations throughout our area. Due to her personal and financial investments, patron lounges at Nazareth College Arts Center and Jiva Theater Center bear her name, along with the name of her late husband, Jock. She has served as chair of the RPO Board of Directors and has been a longtime series sponsor of the RPO, previously with Jock as well. She is currently the chair of the Arts and Cultural Council of Rochester and serves as a trustee of the Board of Directors for both the Little Theater and the JCC of Rochester. Please join me in welcoming our special guest, Dr. Dawn Lipson.
Thank you, Susan. I don't know, is this on? Okay. I am delighted to be here and see so many familiar faces. I would like to talk just briefly about the Arts and Cultural Council for Greater Rochester and what that actually is, so that we make sure that there's no confusion. The Arts and Cultural Council for Greater Rochester, the main purpose of that organization is to raise awareness of all the arts and culture we have within our community, whether it be small individual artists or large organizations with millions of dollars in their budget. Because ultimately, you need two things for those arts to thrive. You need to be able to provide quality arts, and you need people to enjoy those quality arts. So we try to get those two pieces together. I'm currently the chair of that very active board, and it is quite a privilege, and I'm very thankful that I'm getting that opportunity. So now, when we talk about arts and culture within the Greater Rochester region, what exactly are we talking about? Because everybody has a different perspective. What he thinks is arts and culture may not be what she thinks. So we're going to do a little bit of just brainstorming and sort of get that out in the open first, so we're all operating from a level playing field. So let's start with the field of music. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to name a couple of fields, and then I want some participation so that we have at least 6 organizations or individuals that are part of that field that will make the overall grouping that we're going to call arts and culture. So for me, the easiest was to start with music. So we have the Eastman School of Music, we have Hochstein Music and Dance, we have rock music, we have the RPO, we have Rochester Oratorio Society, and we have Pegasus Early Music. Now, this is by no means a comprehensive list, but what it does show is that there is a variety and there's a mixture, and there are offerings for all kinds of tastes and interests. So if we go on to dance, and if I start with dance, and I start with Rochester City Ballet, Garth Vagan, who can name some other dance companies or dance offerings in the New York State Ballet?
I don't know if the Flower City Ballet is up there.
Push Physical Theater, Future Point, Borkin Dance Company, yes, USA Dance. So immediately we see that there's a number of different dance organizations that appeal to different groups of people within our community. Okay, we're going to do the same thing with visual arts. Now, I've separated out graphic arts because I don't want to get into a philosophical discussion when a graphic art becomes an art. So we're going to sort of put them aside. So for visual arts, I'm going to start off with Memorial Art Gallery, Rochester Contemporary Art Gallery. Who else can name some other visual arts? Yes. Flower City Art Center.
Those institutions seem to be more interested in showing native artists from outside the Rochester area than artists inside the Rochester area. That doesn't mean that we don't have interesting work being produced here. They're just
I'd have to disagree with.
Gallery has virtually discontinued the Finger Lakes Show, which used to be a yearly event, and now, what is it, once every 3 years? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, they just finished up a great Wendell Castle show, and he's certainly a great local artist. Yes, sir. Pardon me? Visual Studies Workshop. Image City. Eastman House. Pardon me? Wall therapy. All right, so we have a lot of visual arts within the community. Let's go on to theater. We have Blackfriars, Jiva, Center Stage at the JCC, Downstairs Cabaret. Who can name some other theater groups? Off Monroe Players. Rochester Latino Theater Company. JCC Center Stage. Muck Theater. Don? Theater Rocks, At a Pocket. Yes, ma'am. Pardon me? Tights. Yes, sir. Sankofa and Ron's Collective Theater Fest. Okay, so there's a lot of theater offerings. All right, we're going to go on now. What about museums? We have the George Eastman Museum. We have Strong Museum of Play, Rochester Museum and Science Center. What are some other museums we have? Yes, ma'am. Susan B. Anthony. The Biobob. Yes, ma'am. Jello. See, no, I wouldn't have thought of that. Great addition. Yes. Charlotte Genesee Lighthouse. Yes. Medina Railroad. Wireless Museum in Bloomfield. Okay, we've got a lot of museums. And what about festivals? We have the International Jazz Festival. We have the JCC Film Festival. What other kind of festivals do we have in town?
The oldest cultural festival, the
Puerto Rican Festival.
There's like a festival for almost every ethnic group on the planet here.
That's probably true. Yes, sir. The Fringe Festival. Okay. Anybody else want to name a festival? The Lilac Festival. Yes, sir. Fast Forward Film Festival. Clothesline Festival. Cornhill, Park Ave. Clarissa Street Reunion. All right, so we clearly have a bunch of festivals going on. And written word is also part of the arts and cultural scene. We have BOA, we have writers and books. What other written forms of arts and culture do we have in our community? Teen Book Festival. Children's Book Festival. Jewish Book Festival. Book sandwiched in, okay. Yes, I did. But we can always mention it a second time. All right, so we have a lot of the written word. So now, as we can see, what we have is a large grouping of different size and different focused organizations that comprise arts and culture within our community. So now we are all on the same page. What we're going to consider is arts and culture, or these things that we've named here. And we are going to create a report card on the health of arts and culture within the Rochester community. And the first subject line we're going to look at for that report card is diversity. Now, when most people hear diversity, they think ethnic diversity, religious diversity. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about diversity of offerings. It is not a great community for arts and culture if you don't have music and dance and theater and literature. So the diversity I'm talking about that we're going to grade the community on is the diversity of those offerings. We're going to look at the small groups, the medium groups, the large groups. And I want a couple of people to raise their hands, and if you have to grade it from A to E, why don't you give me the community's grade on the diversity of offerings within our community? A, it's a grade level for the diversity of offerings within our community for arts and culture. Anybody else? A plus. Okay. Give us a reason why you think that.
Although there are diverse art organizations, access, accessibility, inclusion, and really crossing over into non-Spanish speaking or non-African American markets is still extremely challenging. And because we are so small, our budgets don't allow us to have marketing yet.
All right, well, I just want to stop you there because marketing, media, and access is a different group. So right now we're just looking at the diversity of the offerings. Okay, C minus. All right, so we've graded that first subject matter. Now the second subject matter is audience accessibility, and that's what Annette had started to talk about. That includes, are the costs of the tickets reasonable so people can afford to go and enjoy these offerings? Is there physical access? And is there enough marketing and crossover so that multi-communities can access those offerings? Because it does no good if somebody stands on this stage and does the best possible dance routine in the world if they're doing it to an audience of empty chairs, or they're doing it always to the same 10 people. So when we talk about access, we're talking about all of that. The physical access, the cost access, and also the access across all types of populations within our community. Who would like to grade that? I already know that Annette has a grade for that. Yes. Who else? Nobody wants? Yes. Good point. Anybody else? Okay. Anybody else? Okay. The third subject line that we're going to look at on our report card is community partnerships. How do the arts and cultural organizations partner with the community itself? And for some of these, it's very easy to identify. For example, we know the Stage Door Project at Jiva sends their professional staff into the schools. They bring kids to the theater. They do the Summer Academy program. We know that rock music goes down to the David Gant Theater and teaches kids how to play music, and that's all free, and that reaches huge groups. That is a partnership between Hochstein, the Eastman School of Music, and Gateway Festivals. So those are some of the community partnerships I'm talking about, like organizations partnering with the school district, organizations partnering with each other, like we just talked about. And I think, Don, can you tell me, Theater Rocks, how many theater groups are involved with that? 21? So there's a bunch of theater groups that get together. Does anybody have any other examples of partnerships or collaborations? That's a perfect example of a collaboration. Collaborating with the Red Cross, with theater. I don't know who came up with that, but that's brilliant. Perfect. First Fridays. Okay? Perfect example. So when you're looking at the health of arts and culture, if the organizations don't feel strong enough within their own rights, they are going to be very hesitant about collaborating with other organizations and with other units. And they sort of close themselves off to that. We'll get to questions at the end. So by seeing so much diversity and collaborations with organizations, that clearly tells us that many of these organizations want to reach out and want to reach across all kinds of demographics to reach different segments of our population. And the collaborations are critical, both the community partnerships that we talked about and these collaborations, organizations within organizations. Now, the final piece of this report card is the one I think that probably has the most influence on the health of arts and culture in our community, and that's the issue of funding. You go to other communities and you see a lot of corporate support, you see a lot of federal or state support or county support. Our community here is very different. At one time we did have a lot of corporate support. That has sort of faded out as the business landscape has changed. And fortunately here, we have a lot of individual people that actually want arts and culture to thrive. And they are very generous with their time, their talent, and their funding to enable these organizations to survive and do the great work that they want to do and that their missions require. But funding is the major issue that is facing an organization. I don't care if you're as big as the RPO or you're as small as an individual sculptor that's trying to sell his work. It's an issue with all of that. It's across the board. How you do it and how you make that happen so the organizations can thrive is one of the key components that really needs to be addressed in a much more thoughtful, concise, and clear way. There are grants out there, but if you're a small organization and you don't know about the grant, or you don't have a grant writer, the chances of you being able to apply for it are very limited. Also, if you've got a big organization that's applying for that same grant and you're a 3-person operation, the chances are you're really not going to be able to do much with creating that grant. So when we look at the overall health and we're going to look at our report card, what do we see? We have a diversity in offerings. We hit all the what I like to call the basic 5 food groups. You know, we hit all of those with small groups, with large groups, with medium groups. For the most part, it's accessible physically, but cost is an issue. So that there are some issues with cost. Collaboration is a strong ethic within the community, as well as partnerships and building those things together. And funding, if I have to give a grade to funding, it's an F. Because not a single organization that I know of within our community gets the funding they deserve for what they produce. And that is critical to maintaining what we have, and also in the arts, you have to grow. You have to change. If you stay stagnant, you will die. It's like a flower that doesn't get any water. You just wither. So knowing that, you can't do that unless you provide the water for the growth, and that water is funding. So some of the things from the Arts Council we've been trying to do to help with that piece, we do a couple of things. One of the first things we did is we talked to a national group that actually goes across the country and investigates 900 communities throughout our nation and grades them on the vibrancy of the arts and culture within the community. So we started meeting with them and talking with them last year, and we talked a lot. And again, just a reminder, Arts and Cultural Council doesn't provide the art. We're advocates for arts. So we pulled publicity that had been happening. We pulled program directories. We pulled flyers. we made sure they had all of that. The year before we did that, Rochester didn't even rank 1 out of 900. It didn't even make the rankings. Last year when we finished our work, we were 19th in the nation. Did we add art? No. But we made sure people knew it was here. Now, many organizations have taken that information, taken that report, gone to funding sources, and used that in support of grants. And it's become a method to increase funding, especially to the medium-sized organizations. It's a tool now that they can use. We send representatives whenever we can to City Council to make sure they clearly understand the need for funding and for supporting arts within our community. And again, we're not asking for money for ourselves, but we want to make sure that the arts survive. We do that same thing at the state level, and hopefully eventually we will get to do that at the federal level. So I think when we look at our report card overall, I think the offerings from the arts and culture within our community is pretty good. The cost is a little higher than we'd like it to see, but I think that's a direct correlation to the funding streams that are available. And the ethic of collaboration and partnership is also very strong within our community. So I think when you look at all of that, I think arts and culture within our community, I would give it about a C+ overall, with the basic downgrades being in the areas of funding. But it's also a warning, because if we don't address that particular issue, we will lose what we already have. And by the time things fold and the announcement comes in the paper that we're not going to have this anymore, we're not going to have that anymore, it's too late to do anything about that. So if you want to change this report card about the arts and culture in our community, you as individuals can do a number of things. You can donate to your favorite organization, whichever one you prefer. They would welcome donations of any kind, I am sure, and you can be helpful in that way. If it's a performing art or culture, you can attend performances, you can bring friends, you can tell people about those performances. And for those of you on social media, which is not me, I'm being really upfront about that, you can post your great experiences on Facebook, on what I call Twizzler, but I've been informed is actually Twitter. You can do that. So you have the power to improve the health of arts and culture within our community, taking what you're able to do, and even if it's just the people in this room, you can have an enormous impact. So what I would ask you to do is take that power and use it, and make sure that we keep the arts and culture we have now, and that it continues to grow and thrive in the way we'd all like to see it. And ultimately, I think some of these funding streams that have me very concerned, that money gets sidetracked because people look at economics and they look at, we need to provide jobs. And I think you need to come back with the idea that arts and culture provide jobs. I mean, you look at the RPO, you look at the staff they have, those people live and work here. They provide all kinds of resources to school children rather than hanging out on the street corner, coming in for lessons, meeting with other people. Arts create a very great opportunity for people to understand there are other ways to problem solve. It doesn't have to be violent. It gets people to think out of the box, to think about things in a different way. So it becomes vital to the structure of our community to have this vibrant arts and culture, because it's the only way we're going to be able to turn around the things that are here now and create a community that we want to see. So I'm told my time is up. So thank you very much for being a great audience.